Let's talk the cut. One more thing, like, subscribe, and share. Come on, let's talk the cut. Woo!
Hey everybody, it's Cutler here in the Let's Talk the Cutler broadcast, the Let's Talk the Cutler platform. And I want to have a conversation about being motivated. Hey, if this is your first time tuning in, do me a favor, invite somebody to come along, tell them Cutler is here, because I want to talk about motivation. And if this is your first time passing by my channel, just know that this channel is about inspiration, it's about motivation, it is about taking a reflective moment to see what can I do to catapult myself in the space that's called better. And you all know better for me, better for us means showing up a little bit better tomorrow than I did today. It does not by any stretch of the imagination mean that today was a failure or a flop or that things went wrong. It just means that we are pausing at this point of the day to see, what lessons are there? What can I have even in this conversation? What things did life show me today that I can just grab? Was there a nugget? Is there a nugget in this moment, in this space, in this hour that I can use to place myself in a position tomorrow where I consider myself better? Better just means that I am wiser. I'm more aware. I've taken something from the past into my future and I use it to my advantage. That's what better really means. I've taken something from the past that I'm using in my future and I'm using it to my advantage to make me better and stronger and wiser and more experienced. That's what better is. Better is not this vague and ambiguous state of all of a sudden, the light is shining on me and that sort of thing. No, it doesn't mean that. It means that to some degree, somehow, some way, I'm a little more equipped because now I stand in a place where I have something that I didn't necessarily have. And I have an asset, I have a strength, I have something in my arsenal that I didn't necessarily have. Or maybe I had it, but now I'm using it. And that makes me a little bit better. I want to thank you all so much for so many of you have been along with me on this channel for so long. May I pause to say thank you? I'm motivated by that. I really, really am. So I want to thank you. I want to thank those of you who are joining me over in the chat, and I'm going to chat with you this evening. But we talked before. Well, let me just invite those of you who are just coming by. If you're going to catch the replay, however you're going to see me. I'm usually just here for 1,800 seconds on Tuesdays and Thursdays. And then I invite people, make sure that you pull into the gas station. You hit your brakes and you pull over and you just pause for 1,800 seconds with me. That's all I need. That's all the time I take. And if this is your first time, why don't you go ahead and subscribe? If this is your second time, go ahead and subscribe and then click on the notification bell. It lets you know whenever I've gone live or whenever I've uploaded new content. Let's talk about getting motivated. Because I told you this channel is about inspiration, motivation, and challenging ourselves to show up better. So when we say motivation, what do we mean? When we talk about motivation, what is your working definition of the term motivation? What does that really mean? Motivation means the drive. It means the desire. It means the energy. It means the willingness to do what you do. Motivation is the why. It is the reason for doing what you do. And we're talking about motivation because I'm reminded of the heat wave that's just going across the country today. And I think so many times we just get depleted of our energy. So that's what part of this conversation is coming from. Sometimes we just get depleted of our energy. How many of you are just drained by the heat? Life can just drain you. So the heat today is a metaphor of life. Because so many things can drain you, so many things can deplete you, so many things can bring you down. But this is the moment where we're coming together to say, this is my boost to get back up. Life just happens. Let's just be honest. Life just happens, and we are not always operating at 100% motivation level. We are not always operating at 100% anything level. And so I want to talk about motivation. And why am I talking about that? Really, I'm talking about it because, yes, today the heat reminds me that life happens. Life can drain us. But more than that, before we talked about how do I show up as my best self? How do I show up as my best self? And one of the steps that we talked about in order to show up as your best self was to make sure that we eliminate the distractions. And sometimes we are not motivated because we have so many distractions. And we talked about eliminating the distractions. And I promised you all that I would have a subsequent conversation that was focused on motivation and motivating. How do I motivate myself? So once I get rid of once I get rid of the distractions, how do I motivate myself? How do I sometimes get rid of those distractions? Let's talk about that for a moment. But I want to ask yourself as we go into this conversation, you all talk to me because I'm curious. I want to know, are you more self-motivated or are you more motivated by things and people? There is no right or wrong answer. I would love to just see your response in the chat. Are you more self-motivated or are you motivated more by other people and things and circumstances? I think I'm just going to take a poll. I want to poll you all and see how you respond to that. But let's take a look at some of the ways that I think we can motivate ourselves. And you all know I don't necessarily talk from the position of a therapist. I just talk from someone who has lived almost 60 years, and I have my own experiences. And there's some literature that I've read, and there are some other people's lives that I have observed, and then I have my own experiences. And so this platform is based on that. How Cutler do we motivate ourselves? I think one of the first things that we have to come to grips with is that there has to be open confession. When you are not motivated, just be able to say that. Acknowledge that you're having difficulty getting started. Because if motivation is the reason why you do what you do, sometimes we just have difficulty getting started. And you have to acknowledge that I'm having difficulty getting started. Something has depleted me, something has blocked me, something has distracted me, something has drained me. So you've got to acknowledge that. Why do I say you have to acknowledge it? Because if you don't acknowledge that it hurts, you won't ever try to heal it. If you don't acknowledge that it hurts, you'll never try to heal it. That's why I used to laugh at people who would say things like, oh, don't claim it. You're coughing and sneezing all over the places. They would say, don't claim it. Well, it's not necessarily that you're claiming that you have all of this stuff going on, but if you're coughing and sneezing and you got a fever and all that kind of stuff, you might want to try to treat those symptoms for a cold or flu or whatever it may be, right? So when it comes to motivation, you don't have the drive, you don't have the energy, you don't have the willingness. Sometimes you have to say that. Just confess it. I'm having difficulty getting started. I don't have the energy to do it. And if confessing it is difficult for you, then if you can't say it here, then just write it down. I'm having trouble. Because when you acknowledge it, then you can start working towards making sure that you get motivated. When I acknowledge that I can't get motivated, that is the impetus for me to get going. That's the impetus. That's the drive for me to get started. So at least openly confess to yourself. You all know I certainly believe in the truth. And sometimes you have to be truthful to yourself and say, I just can't get started. I just can't get going. I just don't have the energy. I don't have the drive. And then another thing, what else would I suggest in terms of how to motivate yourself? I would definitely suggest that you keep the task in front of you. Know what it is you want to do, even if you have trouble getting started. Keep the task in front of you. Just because you have trouble getting started, don't abandon the task. You've got to apply for the job. You've got to mow the lawn. Whatever the task is, don't abandon it. Keep it in front of you. I need to clean the room. I need to vacuum that floor. Whatever the task is. Come face to face with it, but don't ever turn your back on it. That spoke to me. That just spoke to me. Come face to face with it, but don't ever turn your back on it, because the moment you turn your back on it, it will kick you in the rear. And it'll make you feel defeated and deflated. So even if you don't have the drive to get started, keep it ever before you. Keep it as a goal. Keep it as something that you want to obtain, something that you want to attain, something that you want to, a success that you have in front of you. Keep it as a hope, as a dream, as an ambition. Keep it in front of you. Don't abandon it. I don't care how far away it seems. Don't abandon it, you all. I'm telling you, that thing just spoke to me. Don't ever turn your back on it, because the moment you turn your back on it is the moment it kicks you in the rear. And then what else would I suggest in terms of self-motivation? How to motivate yourself? Become aware of your time management habits. Some of us know that we are not that good at time management, right? I can tell you, I have not always been as good at time management as I am now. So you have to ask yourself, what is my time management style? How do I deal with managing time? Am I one of those persons who says, well, you know what? Sooner rather than later. I'd rather get to this sooner rather than later. Or do you take the perspective that says, well, listen, better late than never? You have to know how you manage time. Know how you manage time. You have a task in front of you and you have maybe 3 days to get it done. Do you strive to get it done on day number 1 so that you can evaluate it on days number 2 and 3? Or just say, listen, I'd rather get this done sooner than later. Or are you one of those persons who would get it done on day number 4 and say, well, listen, better late than never? Have you ever stopped to evaluate your time management habits? What is your ideology and your philosophy when it comes to managing time? You all talk to me. Are you one of those sooner rather than later persons? Or are you one of those better late than never? You have to ask yourself, do you postpone things? Do you procrastinate? Make sure that you are aware of how you manage time. Because if that is not working to your advantage, then you realize, oh, now I know what's not working. I might need to change the way that I manage time. Might need to change the way that I manage time. And to Cutler, what else might you suggest? Well, one of the other things that I would suggest in terms of becoming motivated and motivating yourself is stop focusing on your inabilities and highlight your abilities. Stop saying what you can't do. Stop focusing on what you cannot do, what you really don't have the capability of doing, and celebrate what you can do. Do what you can and then celebrate it. It's almost like lifting weights. Who's going to reach down and just grab the 100 pounds? I remember when I would try to lift weights, you all, and I had this lofty goal. And I would put the weights on the end of the bar because I just knew that I could lift. But guess what? I couldn't. But I did not let that stop me. I was aware of my inabilities, but you know what I did? I went to each end of that bar and took off the weights that I couldn't lift, and I kept on lifting. I lifted what I could. Many of you all who know my story, who have been with me for a while, remember when I talked about, injuring my foot and my ankle and all of that. And some of you all were here when I told you all I ran for the first time in 2 years because I could not run. And to some people, it may not have seemed like a whole lot because when I first started running, I could only run a half block. I didn't say a half mile, a half block. After 2 years, I was able to run a half block. And when I started walking, I would walk a mile, but I kept on walking. And eventually it built up to 3. And then it built up to 5. Some of you all remember that. You are here on this journey with me. So don't focus on what you cannot do. Don't focus on your inabilities, but learn to highlight what you can do. And don't keep people around you who are negative and will focus only on what you cannot do. No. We're talking about motivating ourselves. How do I stay motivated? A part of that is getting rid of the distractions, get rid of the people who or at least put them at a distance. Your only purpose, your only action Is to highlight what I'm incapable of doing? No, I need people. I need resources. I need people who are going to help highlight my abilities. I know what I can't do. But in terms of motivating yourself, don't stop, you all. Don't focus on what you can't do. Highlight what you can. Again, it's like lifting weights. You go to lift the bar and you can't get it up, go to each end, take off the weight, and lift again. You try to walk 3 miles, don't get upset because you only walk one. Keep walking the one, and the one will become 1 1/4, 1 1/2, 1 3/4, eventually 2, and 2 will turn into 3. Keep going. Do what you can. I don't enjoy many exercises, and I tell you that. I don't. But one of the things that I enjoy is sit-ups. And I remember when I first started sit-ups and crunches, and I just had this lofty goal, like I was gonna go 1, 2, and I was just gonna go to 100 just like that. I think I got to 25. I said, "Oh, good God, what is going on?" But guess what? I can go to 100 now, probably 200, and just keep right on going. Do what you can. That's what I'm saying. Don't focus, and don't allow other people to focus on your inabilities, but learn to highlight. This channel is about inspiration and motivation and challenging ourselves to push. And if we're going to do that, it means we're not going to get stuck on what we can't do, but we're going to highlight and celebrate what we can. And along that same vein, what is my next item or the next thing that I would recommend in terms of being able to motivate ourselves? Start with what you have. You can only lift 20 pounds. So what? Somebody else can lift 120. So that's them. That's their story. It's not yours. Start with what you have. You say, I don't have a lot of time. Commit to 20 minutes. If 20 minutes is all you have, commit to that 20 minutes. Understand, motivation is like an airplane, you all. Just let it roll on the ground. Let it roll on the runway for a while, and eventually it'll soar. Let it roll, and it'll take off, it'll soar. That's what motivation is like. Just get going. Start with what you have. And eventually it'll take off, it will soar, it will fly, and it will go to heights unknown. And one day you're looking at your motivation and you say, my God, how did I get here? And it'll be a happy place. It'll be a wonderful place, because you will remember a day when you didn't have the drive, you didn't have the energy, where something had drained you, depleted you. But one day you look and you're sky high. Start with what you have. Start with what you have. And I would recommend to some of us, don't start out trying to multitask, because it does not work for everybody. You have to know you. If multitasking doesn't work for you, then don't multitask. You all put it in the chats. Let me know. Can you multitask? Are you a multitasker? Some people can't. So I would suggest to some people, if you lack motivation, and we're talking about how to motivate yourself, don't start out trying to multitask. Do what's most important first. Prioritize. And then you say, these are the low-hanging fruits. I can accomplish this first. Oh, I can do this. And you get that sense of accomplishment, and you'll want to do something else. I'm telling you all what I've done, because I had so many goals, so many ideas, so many hopes, so many dreams, so many ambitions. And sometimes I was overwhelmed in my mind, because I said, oh my God, it's too many of them for me to try to handle all at one point. And what did I do, you all? I prioritized. I was realistic about what I could accomplish, what I could do, what I could check off. And it didn't always work for me to try to multitask. I had to find out how to do what was most important first. I had to prioritize. And what else might I suggest? You all let me know if this is helping you. Honest to God, I'm just really trying to help save somebody's life, because sometimes we end up in a space and a place where we cannot get motivated. We can't get going. And we will sit in that space for sometimes days, weeks, months, and even years, because we are not motivated. No judgment, no condemnation, but sometimes we sit in those places because we can't get motivated. We're waiting for other people to come along and motivate us. And many times the journey is about self-motivation. I hope I'm helping somebody. We're looking for others to motivate us. And because they don't motivate us, then we don't motivate ourselves. That is not a good space. What else might I suggest in terms of becoming self-motivated? It's almost like working in production. Learn how to punch in and punch out. Do what you can in the amount of time that you set. If you give yourself 20 minutes or if you give yourself 2 hours, do what you can in that time slot. Do I have any examples? Of course, you know I do. When I wrote my books, and if you're interested in them, go to Amazon.com and look for Gregory Brad Cutler. 6 of the 7, they're out there. But when I wrote those books, I did not always have the luxury of being able to take a retreat or sit down and just do nothing but write. I could not do that. So there were days when I would just set aside an hour slot or 2 hour slot, and I would punch in and punch out. I knew I had 2 hours to work on it, and I would do what I could within that 2 hours. After the 2 hours was over, I'd punch out and move on to something else that was going on in my life. Punch in and punch out. Give yourself those time slots. Do what you can in the span of time that you have. You've got to do that. That's how you motivate yourself. These are ways, these are steps and methods of motivating yourself. And I asked at the beginning of this conversation, are you more motivated by other people, or are you self-motivated? Who or what? Who or what? Because sometimes we are both, but I was just wondering, which one are you more of? I certainly recognize that we are many times motivated by people, other people in our lives. And so I take a moment and I think about the people in my life who have motivated me, and I count my blessings. And I thank God for them. And may I tell you that I'm thankful for you. Every Tuesday and Thursday, when I think about doing this, when I think about showing up, when I think about hopefully pouring into somebody's life, I'm motivated by that. And I don't take it for granted. So you all have heard me say things like, thank you for allowing me to come into your space, whether it's your home, your living room, your dining room. And that's not just something to fill the space, but I mean it. I'm motivated by the opportunity to share a part of my life, to share a part of my heart, to share a part of my experience for the betterment, hopefully, of somebody else. I'm motivated by that. Many of us. So I say, who are you motivated by? And if you want to take the time to pay a tribute to them and just put their first name in there, please feel free to do so. And I was thinking about my experience, thinking about my journey earlier today, and I was thinking, wow, I'm thankful for so many people. And I was thinking, who motivates me? Friends and family members, acquaintances. You all have heard me say it over and over and over. My mother always taught me never to ignore, but to always be thankful for the people that God allows to come in and out of my life, and to pay attention to them. And for that, I am always, always, always thankful. And what do we do? Here's the question. What do we do when the people who motivate us are no longer around? I think about a number of us who have lost people. They're no longer in this realm with us. And you say, Cutler, my mother used to motivate me. My father used to motivate me. My grandparents used to motivate me. My uncles and my friends, and they're no longer here. What do we do when they're no longer here? I want to especially take a moment and honor them. And if you'd like to join me in the chats, just write their name in the chat. You can just write their first name. So for the sake of privacy, just feel free to just drop their first name in the chat. What do we do when they are no longer around? And you say, Cutler, those were the people who used to motivate me. I want to help somebody. I want to help somebody. Because we go through things, we lose people in this life, and we think, wow, they're no longer here. How do I go on? How do I make it? How do I survive? How do I get to the next day? How do I get through the next hour, the next minute? How do I do it? So then, let's take a moment and pay a tribute to them. Cutler, what is it that we do? How do you do it? I remember them. Many of you all know that if you've been around long enough, you know that my great grandfather is one of the heroes of my life. For you all who don't know, I'm 6'4", 6'4" and a half, and my great grandfather was only 4'10". Now, can you imagine? I mean, just the contrast of what that looks like. I'm 6'4", he's 4'10", but can I tell you that for the rest of my life, he will always be one of the greatest heroes in my life. And I will forever be motivated by him. And so I hope this helps somebody who may have had some recent losses. And you're thinking, I thought there was a moment when I just couldn't move on. They used to motivate me. How am I going to make it? Can I tell you, with all respect for your pain, with all respect for your mourning, with all respect for your grieving, be motivated by their lives. Be motivated by their memories. Be motivated by their conversations. Be motivated by their examples. Be motivated by the impressions that they made in your life. Be motivated by the impact that they had on your life. Be motivated by what you remember, by what you recall, by what you experienced from their life. If you want to drop their names in the chat, I think about it. Of course I do. I will always remember my great granddaddy Allen. I will always remember people like my Aunt Louise. I will always remember people like my cousin Ella. I will always remember people like my dad. I will always remember people like my Aunt Minnie. I will always remember these people. I will always remember friends and family. I will always remember the conversations that they had with me during their lives. And even through the tears that I shed in remembering them, I am motivated. I want to help somebody. Because you say, Cutler, how do I make it? And you're talking about motivation, and I'm not always so hyped up, because when I think of them, sometimes all it does is makes me cry. I get that. I get it. Because you're still dealing with the eternal love and the heartbreak of not having immediate access to them like you once had. Can't hug them, can't talk to them, can't hold on to them, can't do any of this. But when they were living, they motivated you. I want to give you a chance to just write their names in the chat and honor their memories. Let's honor them. Let's honor their memories and thank God for the motivation that they were to you. And catch this. The motivation that they will always be to you, because you will forever remember the impacts on your life, right? So I get it. I get it. We're not always as self-motivated as we want to be. Sometimes, Cutler, I fall back into the space of being motivated by other things and people, and then I become sad because some of the people who used to motivate me are no longer here. I want to offer you this space now to remember that you can always be motivated by them. Be motivated by their conversations again. Be motivated by what you know about them, what they would want you to do, how they would want you to live, how they would want you to thrive, how they would want you to succeed, how they would want you to go on, how they would want you to receive victory after victory, how they would want you to win, how they would want you to show up, how they would want you to be present, how they would want you to be strong, how they would want you to endure and survive and thrive. Be motivated by that. Be motivated by that. You all, listen, I want to thank you all so much. Thank you so much for this time and this space. But as I end this conversation, I want to challenge us. You know, it's about inspiration, motivation, and then challenging us to show up better. For as much as I've challenged us to delve into self-motivation, and to continue to be motivated by people. Here is my challenge. As we are receiving motivation, make an effort to give motivation. Make an effort to become a motivator. Find somebody whose life you can impact, whose life you can have an impression, whose life you can push when they need pushing and pull when they need pulling. Poked and prodded when you say there's more in you. Be their energy when you see their energy is depleting, when you see their energy is draining. I challenge us to stand up and not only be motivated, but to be motivating. I challenge us. Whose life are you motivating? Again, thank you all. I've got to get out of here. Thank you all so much for sharing this space with me. And again, I'm so motivated by you all. But I wanted to give us this opportunity to reevaluate what motivation means. Drive, energy, zeal. And then to examine how we can become a little more motivated. And not only self-motivated, but to look at what it means to be motivated by other people. And then how do we handle life when they're no longer here? We can still be motivated by what they meant in our lives, what they will always mean. And then conclusively, I wanted to remind us, just as we seek to be motivated, let us also strive to be motivating. I got to go, y'all. Let's keep building community. Let's keep maintaining connectivity. Stay safe, stay sane, keep your heads up, keep your hopes up, and know from my heart to yours, there is and always will be so much love. I want to thank you all for joining me this evening. I'll see you all right back here the next time we meet here. I may not be in this space because you all know I'm traveling recently. So, but wherever I'm traveling, I'm going to pause and meet you all on this platform. I'll see you next time. Bye-bye.